Hello again, welcome to the Ref Show. Referees don't take penalty kicks, however it is a story of missed penalties by referees, if you see what I mean, over the weekend in the Premier League. I think we've got several instances of them for Mark Halsey and Roger Dilkes to dissect. We've got some instances of great refereeing to report as well. We look at a couple of high-profile matches in the EFL, Bolton against Preston, which I happen to be at in the Championship, and Blackburn against Wigan in League One. And remarkably, having visited the northwest of England over the weekend to go to Bolton, you've got no snow over there.
Nice.
You're soft.
I know it. Well,
yeah.
it was great because, as I say, I landed at Manchester on Friday and it was fantastic.
Apart from the temperature.
Oh, gee, I mean, I've never known it so cold.
No.
I mean, he kept warning me about all the snow, but I mean, a little bit of snow and it buries him, doesn't it? So.
Well, I've seen some short-sleeved referees over the weekend, so full of admiration for them in these conditions as well. Yeah. But before we come to those games specifically, can we? VAR needs to be sort of cleared again from our schedule, a bit like shoveling snow, really. We've got it on here because the International Football Association board over the weekend have decided to approve it. It's almost certain to be in for the World Cup. The big question we're asking ourselves here, after some fairly farcical trial matches, is are the Premier League going to adopt this next season? What do you think?
Well, I think listening to Steve Parish, the Crystal Palace owner, I think not.
I agree. I agree. I don't think they're ready.
I don't think they're ready. I don't think the quality of the VARs, the active officials, are good enough. They've not had enough training and education, and we saw that at Wembley last Wednesday in the Tottenham-Rochdale game with the first goal. I mean, it was a goal, and they haven't followed protocol. So, and it was basic. So, I think there's a lot of work. Listen, we've got to enhance it. It's in its infancy. It's in its trial. Period.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be errors, but you know, it's all down to the training and education of the VAR.
So you don't think the Premier League will bring it in next season? And yet, Roger, you would support that. You don't think they should either?
Yes, we don't want a situation which appears to be at the moment, where VAR is almost re-refereeing the game.
Yeah.
You know, they should be coming in for clear and obvious errors, and we're finding that, you know, as Mark's just mentioned, the Tottenham Rochdale game, that wasn't a clear and obvious error. No. And on a normal day, that would have been a goal, end of story, move on.
Yeah. So it seems to me that clubs have almost turned tail on this, because the cry would go up from managers in particular, oh, if only we had video refereeing, we could have corrected that. And suddenly they're seeing what they wished for, and they don't like it, do they?
Well, I'm a bit sceptical as well about bringing the VAR into the most prestigious tournament in world football, the World Cup.
Yeah.
They're using most probably the same sort of officials that took part in the Confederations Cup last summer, and that was a complete shambles.
It was.
Do you think that during the World Cup we'll be talking about farcical episodes?
Well, I think we will,
not.
but obviously it's down to the training and education, and also the language barrier as well. You know, they've got to make sure they're speaking good English, because English is the number one language of FIFA.
Yeah, they're going to have to work in groups, you know, so that referees and VARs can communicate, or otherwise it will be a farce.
Okay, well, here's one over the weekend then. If we look at the Premier League, this was Burnley 2, Everton 1, and Chris Kavanagh was in charge here. Ashley Williams gets sent off late on for a flailing arm that's very difficult to spot real time. Should a VAR come in on a subjective thing like that, between a difference between a red and a yellow, hypothetically?
No, it shouldn't come in that situation, because it's, at the end of the day, it's in the opinion of the referee, it's subjective. It's not a clear and obvious error.
No, and the same was true with the first goal the other night, when the VAR disallowed a goal.
Absolutely.
You know, by coming in on something that wasn't clear and obvious.
And that's why I was saying, we don't want VAR re-refereeing games that are going on. No. They should only come in when it's to the advantage.
Minimum interference, maximum benefits, and we're not seeing that at present in the English game.
No, they're coming in. It's becoming a minuscule analysis and move in rather than.
And just to mention very quickly, we blogged an MLS game last night.
Yeah.
There was a clear penalty. The referee didn't give it as a penalty, didn't give any decision other than a goal kick, and it wasn't referred. And VAR didn't come in.
Right.
So there's an opportunity, a clear and obvious error to come in and put things right. For the referee to have a look at it again, nothing happened.
Just saying, going on for what Roger, there was an incident in the Orlando game as well, exactly the same as the one at Burnley and Everton, where there was a flailing arm. The referee, in my opinion, is correctly cautioned, but then the VAR's got involved, he's reviewed it, and he's sent him off.
And you believe that shouldn't happen, but it should be
But it wasn't it wasn't a clear and obvious error. So the VAR, in my opinion, I may be wrong, but it wasn't a clear and obvious error.
Shall we get down to what were probably clear and obvious errors in terms of penalty kicks not awarded at the weekend? Starting with the lunchtime game on Saturday, which was a 1-1 between Leicester and Bournemouth with Lee Probert in charge. I mean, looking at that, it looks pretty clear that Bournemouth should have had a penalty when leading 1-0 that Charlie Daniels pulled down. How did Lee not spot that, or maybe an assistant not help him?
I don't think the assistant can help him because it's on the other side of the field of play from the assistant referee. But play moved very quickly from one end to the other. To a certain extent, Probert's detached. He doesn't have a good viewing angle because there are players between him and the incident. But he's not thinking there's going to be a foul committed. Right. And there's a very, very clear push by Ndidi, the Leicester player, on Daniels.
Big one, that. Could have put Bournemouth 2 up, couldn't it?
And that give potential opportunity to go 2-0 up, and since they only scored in the last virtual kick of the game,
Riyad Mahrez was great free kick.
I mean, Eddie Howe wasn't pleased, was he? And you can understand why.
That's not the first penalty they should have had this season either. I mean, one of their players was cautioned for simulation when it was another
clear
penalty.
But at the end of the season,
it could have massive repercussions. Massive repercussions.
This one perhaps didn't so much. It was in Spurs 2, Huddersfield 0, which is fairly clear cut. But Mike Jones, the referee, pulled a calf, I think, and he had to go off. Finished the game.
Well, he didn't start.
No, he didn't start.
He did it
finished
in the
fourth official.
All the best to Mike on his recovery.
Yeah, indeed. Kevin Friend stood in and waved away a penalty after Song was grabbed.
Well, I mean,
a penalty appeal. I should say.
Once again, we talk about referees, the awareness and referees positioning, and I've got to say, why on earth Kevin has come wide and coming around and coming? He's at the back of the players. What is he going to see? He's looking straight through the players. He's not going to see it. He's not going to see it. No. So if you can't see it, you can't give it. So what he's got to do, he's got to come inside and get that frontal view.
Yes.
If he comes inside like we all saw, straight away it was a penalty, he would have seen it, he would have given it. So I think Kevin will be disappointed at his positioning, and hopefully he learned from it.
Correct.
Okay, and another one that didn't materially affect the result, fortunately, was at Anfield, where Graham Scott was in charge of Liverpool 2, Newcastle 0. Should have had a further late goal, Liverpool possibly a penalty, pushing the back on Salah by Lascelles. However, you've got a point to make on that.
Well, it's quite funny, really, because he was the VAR at Tottenham Rochdale, where he sees a free kick in that game, which none of us saw, and then he doesn't pick that up. I mean, but the assistant's got to come in and help him as well.
You're not sure it was a penalty, are you?
No, I think it was outside the box. Yeah. But, I mean, as a referee, when I refereed, I don't know if Roger was the same, but when you had an incident like that, and you got a forward in front of a defender on that situation, and it was Salah, why is a player going to go down when he's about to pull the trigger to score a goal? And you're saying to yourself, don't bring him down. Don't bring him down. If you bring him down, it's a red card. He's off. Yeah. And yes, he was a little bit detached from play, but I always use that scenario when I was a referee. When a forward was in front of a defender, why is he going to go down? And admittedly, the assistant referee, forget who the assistant was now.
I can't remember.
Yeah, but it starts outside the area initially, isn't it? But does it not continue inside?
No, because the foul has taken place and there's no contact out inside the box. He goes down inside the box.
He falls into the box.
And he falls into the box. But it should have been a free kick to Liverpool and a red card.
It should have been a red card. It's dogs. And he had an uninterrupted view of it. So even though he's well behind, the point that Mark makes about why would a player go down in that situation, well, they don't, because all they're thinking about is scoring.
Well, they should be.
Salah, he's on fire. So there's no way that he's going to fall down in that situation.
As a result of Kevin Friend having to step in that situation, Stuart Atwell refereed the Brighton Arsenal game. Arsene Wenger suffered another defeat, 4 in a row now, I think. Brighton 2, Arsenal 1. One major talking point refereeing wise, should Kolasinac have been sent off in that for a second yellow? He wasn't, as it turned out.
My opinion, I think he should have most definitely been sent off for second yellow card, a reckless challenge. I like Stuart. I think he's done tremendous. You know, he was some years ago. He was removed from the elite list, wasn't he? Yep. And he's off FIFA as well. He's battled his way back. You know, back onto the elite list, back onto the FIFA international referees list. And I just think that Stuart's got to toughen up. He's a little bit naive, and he was a little bit weak in that situation. And I would just like to see him toughen up. And then once again, we've had these little battles going on around the field of play. He's not aware of what's going on, and it just needs a good coach to come and take some of these referees, because a lot of them are lacking in a lot of confidence, aren't they, Roger?
Well, they are, and he's one that you could work with. And there are signs in a game where you've got to make an impact as a referee, and this was one for me, because despite what was said on television, when you have a look at the replay, you see the Arsenal player actually looking at his opponent, and there's no way that he's going past him.
That's right.
Now, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute he wanted to hurt the player, but there's no two ways about the way that he went about his business. Right. And for me, that was another clear yellow card opportunity missed, which would have resulted in a red.
Right.
But players know their referees. You can smile with them, you can laugh, you can joke, but when you need to come down hard on players, you need to do it.
Need
to players will respect you.
Right. How good was Michael Oliver? So we come on to some real positives now. Manchester City 1, Chelsea 0. City great. Chelsea weren't. Michael Oliver, man of the match.
Listen, it wasn't a difficult game, but you can only referee what's in front of you.
Absolutely.
And the pleasing thing I like about Michael is that, 2 or 3 years ago, I always said to become a top referee, you've got to eradicate the key match errors that a referee makes in his game. Now he's done that. It's very rare you see him make a big key match error. And I just like the way his awareness. He anticipates play, he reads play, he doesn't invade on player space, he keeps out of it, he doesn't get hit by the ball. And the players like him, the players respect him, because they know what they're going to get from him.
Can we breeze through a few before we go to EFL?
I mean, in that game there was one big decision he had to make, where the City player challenged his opponent, and lots of us felt, that's orange. So he yellow carded him. And I think that's fine. I think that's fine.
Just breeze through a few more before we go on to a couple of big EFL games. Southampton 0, Stoke 0 was Anthony Taylor. Martin Atkinson was in the middle for Swansea 4, West Ham 1. Any points to raise on those two, first of all?
Just that you got the two top referees that I think are the best two in the Premier League at the moment, and my league table will show you that they're the best two.
YouAreTheRef.com, Mark assesses every performance.
But once again, you've got Martin Atkinson, no problems. Michael Oliver. No problems.
Paul Tierney's game was a 1-0 win for Watford over West Brom, whose manager Alan Pardew continues to survive.
He's coming on well, Tierney, and let's hope in the run into the end of the season he gets a fair number of games, because he is one for the future.
I thought he'd done well, especially after
tough game.
Being in his position or in his shoes on Wednesday, I bet he was very frustrated with the VAR and how it worked.
He was the man in the middle,
but he came through well on Saturday. Not an easy game, given all the background to that.
Right. Championship and League One, big matches in Lancashire, both derby games, and not easy. Starting in the Championship, where I saw bravely shirt sleeve Peter Banks, and I thought he did really, really well. I know you guys rate him; he's one of the younger up-and-coming referees. This was Bolton 1, Preston 3, and there was a bit of fizz in the physical in this game, but kept a lid on it, a few yellow cards, and that was it. So. What did you think on that one?
I think Banks is one for the future. I've said it several times on this programme. I've watched his performances. 2 seasons ago I watched him, and I thought he needed to you know, get a little bit of steel in his belly and make the big decisions and get the respect of players and so forth. And slowly but surely he's done that. And I think Saturday's game, you were at the game, so you saw it firsthand. But that's what he did.
I see it differently from you, see, because I was there for TalkSport to report a football match. So I'm not actually looking at the referee as closely as you. I'm looking at the play and the goals. And if the referee doesn't interrupt the enjoyment of that game, then I'm happy.
Absolutely.
I second what Roger said. The only thing with Peter Banks is that I'd just like to see him more consistent with these performances. You know, they seem to have, you know, 1, 2, 3 good games, and all of a sudden, a couple of games, they just go off the bottle. You've got to treat every game as though it's your last.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. I think that will come with experience of refereeing consistently well in the bigger games. And he's had some big games this season.
Yeah, so talking to Alex Neil afterwards, the Preston manager, he felt the corner that was awarded that led to Bolton's goal, first goal of the game, should have been a goal kick. But
we've all done it. We've all done it, and it'll happen next week in the
you
Premier
can't go
League,
back too far with errors. And Jeff Eltringham, one of the more experienced names, was in charge of a terrific game in League One, top of the table, Blackburn 2, Wigan 2. You boys weren't entirely impressed with the refereeing of that. What do you think?
I just think he let too much go. His recognition of careless, reckless. There was little individual battles going off the ball, and there's off the ball incidents going on, and he just and his gaze vision wasn't the best either, and he just wasn't aware of it. And as a referee, you've got to be aware of what's going on around you. And you do have time, while the game's going on, you do have time to look around and see like little players having verbals with each other, give them a little dig, and you pick that up and you nip it in the bud. And I just didn't think he stamped his authority on the game like he should have done.
No, I think he would obviously have done his homework before he went into a game like that, I would like to think. And for me, in the early parts of that game, whatever he decided to do wasn't working. And the good referees, they have the ability to change their own particular game plan as to how they manage players and so forth. And the signs and the little things that go on in games, which Mark's just alluded to, those are the things you've got to pick up. And you've got to get into the ribs of the players and so forth and let them know in the right way that you're not having that. But to be letting fouls go and not giving them, and for not leaving your gaze in when two players are crunching into each other and just moving away as though there's nothing happened, that's your opportunity to stamp your authority on the game.
Okay, 40 seconds
left.
Well,
just quickly going on from Roger, and also the tempo management. It's about slowing the game down. He didn't slow the game down. But the other point I want to make with this is that it's a League One game. Okay, we've got a full-time Championship referee on the game. Now we're looking at progression planning that doesn't seem to be happening at the moment. Why are we not giving a young League One, League Two referee that's been doing well, that's at the top of their merit list, put him in that game and see how he does? Give him the experience at refereeing those big games. How are they going to get better if they're not doing those games? Where's the motivation for these referees in League One, League Two to jump in and do these?
Well, you two might be promoted next week, maybe to the National League.
That's demoted.
Demoted. Roger and Mark, thanks very much indeed. Thanks for watching another Ref Show next week. See you then.